Well, first of all, we'll build anything that Procter & Gamble will buy against, just to be clear on that one. But we think there's tremendous opportunity in social media. So I talked about our mom site, and the moms are incredibly passionate about our sites, and the moms who are on them are coming back a lot. They're very much engaged. They're engaged with each other on the sites. And it's the sort of engagement that we don't see around some of our other products. Some we do because we have niche products. We're not just a news company, but the level of engagement we're getting in social media is different because it's a different sort of connection and affinity that the user has for these sites. And so where we see opportunity is, with moms as an example, would be giving moms the opportunity to connect directly with brands that they interact with. And so it's going beyond the banner. And that's you know, one benefit that we see in the Ripple 6 platform that we haven't seen in other similar platforms, which is the ability to syndicate communities into the site or beyond the site, as Dan had talked about the importance of syndication earlier. And so we think if there's a tremendous value still left to be unlocked. So no one's really solved the problem of monetizing social media in a very significant way, right? It's where the internet is going, right? I mean, it's the true value of interactive media. It's where users want to be. They're gravitating to social media sites to connect. Marketers like Procter & Gamble want to engage more with users directly, but there hasn't really been a logical way to do it, and there hasn't been a way where you get metrics on the back end that really show you the value of it. So one thing that we're planning to do on our mom sites through the Ripple 6 platform is to create communities for brands. Now, it has to be in a very logical way or a very natural way for users. So it has to be done right, where there's value for users in participating in these communities. But we think that there is, because we think that there's demand in the moms audience, for example, for moms who interact with particular products to understand more about those products or understand more about lifestyle elements relating to those products. So you could have, say, a group around technology, for example, that a marketer participates in. It may relate to a technology product offered by that marketer, but it could just relate to technology issues generally. And if you can get the right analytics on the back end, then you can get in deep and understand, the marketer can understand how consumers want to interact, and you can create a better experience that way.
I got one more thing to add on that. It's not just the, we reach into our bag of analytics and we pull up page views per visit, time spent, the usual suspects. And what's great about the Ripple platform in our mind is that you can actually go in and look at the conversation. And that's very, very powerful. And I've got an example from last year. It had nothing to do with the Ripple 6 platform, but it was an application that we launched during the holidays. It was called Make a Snowflake, and we've got lots of little flash apps you can make. You can frost a cookie, you can carve a pumpkin, and they're very engaging applications. This was the first year we had done Make a Snowflake, and essentially you could get in this flash app and you get this piece of paper and you could take this virtual scissors and cut it. And if you you would fold the paper and then cut it, and you imagine what happens when you fold paper and cut it, and it turns into a snowflake. And it was truly like unique snowflake, so you couldn't get in there and replicate another's snowflake. And our audience was basically coming into the application. It was sponsored by Walmart. So Walmart, as a part of a larger CPM deal, bought the snowflake tool, and their brand was in the sky where the snowflakes were falling. And essentially, as these women created the snowflakes, and they went from, and a lot of children were on as well, everything was just coming out gorgeous. And then we started to see, and it's really true, you just couldn't screw up the thing. I mean, you could cut till you were until, I think the thing finally, after you cut like 100 times, it would go like, all right, just put down the scissors. But these snowflakes, essentially you'd create one and then it would fall from the sky and have your name on it, a little message. And so it was, in my mind, it was a social app. It was content created by users. They were identified and with some more messaging on it. And later in the season, about January, I started seeing these really intricate snowflakes falling, like pictures of little girls' faces with scarves. And the messaging on these snowflakes was, Julie sachets down the aisle as she, kind of throws the scarf behind in the Walmart fashion show. And I started digging into it and starting doing searches on Walmart and the snowflakes, and I found this community of snowflake makers who had created this concept called the Walmart Fashion Show. And they were very, very talented snowflake makers who actually had created a group on Yahoo and were teaching techniques on how to make snowflakes sparkle, how to create pictures of faces and so forth. And when I did the search, I found these amazing, amazing snowflakes, and they all kept on saying the Walmart Fashion Show, the Walmart Fashion Show. Now, I can't measure that using traditional metrics, but until I can look at the conversation and go back to Walmart, I mean, if I can't go back to Walmart and say that's engagement, that is truly engagement, when we start seeing it incorporated in the conversation that's happening, and it's a very positive conversation that's happening, you know, I felt like that was it, and that Ripple 6 brings that same type of insight into the conversations that are happening in social media. But I thought it was a great example of engagement that we didn't even know that type of engagement existed until we saw it.
Yeah, and just one thing to add to that too, because I think that's just a really good example and a really good point, is when you're able to see the conversations and understand what happens with them, it really creates a tremendous amount of value. So the other thing is being able to see how conversations get shared. So you're not just looking one-dimensionally at it to see, okay, well, this comment got posted in a forum and it had this many replies, therefore it must have been very valuable or must have resonated with users, but the ability to also see on the back end how conversations get shared, because sometimes they do get shared even if they're not commented on. Dan had also mentioned the different levels of engagement before from users, and there are plenty of users who, you know, are there and are valuable, but may not be sort of expressing themselves through comments, but may want to be sharing these conversations with friends. And so again, being able to see that on the back end with the Ripple 6 platform is of value.